we're going to begin with East of Eden, based on the John Steinbeck novel. And Craig, I believe you're telling us about that.
Aye, John Steinbeck knew a thing or two about books. You may have heard of some of his works. One of them, East of Eden, was his self-proclaimed masterwork, a 600-page or thereabouts behemoth chronicling the interwoven affairs of two families in California's Salinas Valley around the run-up to the First World War. Revered and lauded throughout the literary world, East of Eden would clearly be a great prize and career statement for the director talented enough to marshal its adaptation for the screen. 3 years after selling his buddies down the Suwannee in front of McCarthy's House Committee on Un-American Activities, Elia Kazan was the man deemed fit for the job. I'm still trying to figure that out. Why that man was in the aftermath of that. Never mind. And after screen testing the likes of Brando and Newman, as I mentioned before, he settled on James Dean for the lead of Cal Trask, troubled son of Adam, a successful generational farmer, and brother of Aaron, the young star of the family. The boys have grown up believing their mother to be dead, although we eventually learn that this is not the case. But that's of little consequence. Narrowing the source novel's influence to its final third, or thereabouts again, and set exclusively in the period immediately during World War I, the movie begins with Cal riding a train roof from Salinas through the mountains to the town of Monterey, whereupon he stalks a middle-aged woman through the streets to a brothel and starts throwing stones at the building. So far, so David Lynch. I thought I was really tired when I started watching this movie, and I wondered that I wasn't having some sort of weird fever dream. I actually think now that this is perhaps the best part of the film, because at least at that stage I was left wondering whether or not this character was actually an absolute raging bell end, or if there was any sort of reasonable reason for his actions. The explanation for this is withheld at this point, and Cal returns home to harangue brother Aaron and his fiancée Abra for a bit by acting like a general dick. Meanwhile, Dad Adam feels he and his sons have benefited greatly from the people of California, and in an attempt at giving something back, he invests massively in the new technology of refrigeration, dreaming of a day he can ship fresh lettuce far and wide. Unfortunately, some railroad trouble means Adam takes a bath on that veg, and subsequently the money invested in the equipment. Not to worry, as Cal decides, actually not unwisely, that the way to earn his father's respect is to invest in growing beans, a commodity that will certainly skyrocket in value should America enter the war. Cal's relationship with his father, the emotional core of the movie, would best be described as tense, though in the evidence presented throughout the opening reels of the movie, it is incredibly difficult not to agree with Adam's perspective on his son, what with his every action being that of a petulant, emotionally retarded proto-emo who displays a bizarre penchant for infantile histrionics, including pressing and rolling his face against various fixtures and fittings like a horny cat anytime he talks to an adult. I might be missing something here, but if this is brooding intensity, I am baffled as to why the 7-year-old me wasn't fighting off hordes of adoring female fans. Actually, I'm really confused by this movie in general. It does that thing America has been obsessed with in TV and film where actors in their 20s portray teenagers. Only here, Cal behaves like a preteen, but then we see them sitting in a bar drinking, which, and I've done my research, in post-1981 pre-Prohibition California, makes them at least 18. Steinbeck considered Dean here his greatest casting decision, and I can only imagine this kind of behaviour must have curried more favour or felt somehow more relatable in the 50s. From where I'm sitting in 2019, it's baffling to think this is considered pivotal both as a movie and as a performance. I thought maybe I was taking crazy pills, what with the 10-star user reviews on various online movie resources, but I did at least find a couple of IMDb users as perplexed as myself. One of those described Dean as rolling around like Gumby, which meant I immediately had to Google Gumby. I'm pleased to say I enjoyed my 5 minutes of YouTube time with an anthropomorphised lump of plasticine infinitely more than 2 hours with James Dean. I'm completely willing to concede that I'm wrong about all this, but my personal preference for Dean has very definitely been set by this first outing, and I have no desire for a second or third. I certainly don't intend pointing my finger towards Steinbeck, because even in the heavily truncated story presented here, there is bountiful narrative potential for an engaging arc. Certainly there's some technical merit in Kazan's direction, but nothing so much as to be considered a landmark, and having conducted some half-assed internet research, I'm quite happy to let him take the lion's share of the blame on account of what I view to be a great many bad creative decisions. Maybe my fellow Fuds fared better, but actually, having just had that brief conversation before this, I'm guessing they probably didn't.
No. One thing, for me, it's actually a bit worse in Rebel Without a Cause, but James Dean is a grown-ass man acting like a small child, and it's worse in Rebel Without a Cause. I suspect he's not supposed to be 18 even though he's at the bar, because I don't think that's a particularly legal establishment anyway, but he's still acting like, 8 years? That's exactly what it is in Rebel Without a Cause. It's like
genuinely pre-teen. Yeah.
8 years old he is, and it's... I can't get over that. Well, he can have some powerful deliveries and all that, but the fact that he is acting so far away from the age group that he actually is, I could never get over. He just does not seem like the age group that he should be playing, and it all seems really immature.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm not a young woman, but would that not be the biggest turn off in the world?
You would think so.
Certainly in terms of the idea of, like, young women liking college age guys and stuff too, and we wouldn't want like a little brat of a boy that he appears to be trying to play here.
Yeah, it's just bizarre. Sorry for interrupting, Scott.
No, I don't think I've got an awful lot else to say about the film, to be honest. I didn't hate it. I suppose I read it as somewhat of a retelling of the Cain and Abel story, and I guess I can see that, but it takes an awfully long time to do anything, and what it is doing is generally doing with characters that are just quite annoying. I don't think there's any characters at all that I liked in there. Either Cal or his brother or the girlfriend or the father.
There is one person I sympathised with throughout the whole film, and you know the scene at the fair where he climbs out of the Ferris wheel because they are all piling on Albrecht,
the German guy.
Yeah, and the fight's going on, and in the background the camera cuts to there's an old guy sitting there in a rocking chair bobbing back and forwards, puffing on a pipe, and the look of contempt he has for his fellow citizens of Salinas, which apparently is a town populated entirely by old white men and 24-year-old people acting like 12-year-olds. The look of contempt on his face is the only point of bond between myself and any character in this movie whatsoever. I'm like, that guy gets it.
Yeah, so it seems that I fared considerably better than either of you in this particular episode. I really enjoyed East of Eden. I don't think it was earth-shattering by any means. I don't think it's a classic that everybody ought to see. I just thought it was a solidly entertaining story and I enjoyed it. There were bits and pieces of Dean's performance I liked, even though it was like around the time of that film's release, a lot of people said he's basically just trying to copy Marlon Brando. And I'm watching this film thinking, a lot of this time he's basically just trying to copy Marlon Brando, but with considerably less talent. That said, I still enjoyed him a bit, although all of your points about his ridiculous physicality in this and the things he's doing, like he's some 6-year-old in dire need of having his bottom smacked for being a naughty boy.
It's downright creepy in parts where he's spying on Abra and Aaron in the top of the ice shed at the start of the movie and stuff. It's just and then the point at the end at which his father actually for the first time I think probably unfairly berates him when he presents him with the money, and he rejects it as an offer because he then basically the one time that his son's done something and he thinks he's trying to win his father's affection, he's made an effort, and he basically gets accused of war profiteering, which is feels kind of heavy for someone who's supposed to be in their teens. And he was just trying to win his dad's approval. His response to that, where he all of a sudden starts throwing himself about, like in the last episode we spoke about conspiracy theory and that bizarre Looney Tunes escape sequence from the wheelchair, he sort of like runs out of the house flailing and going what behaviour is this?
Yeah, I mean, and I'm going to continue to mention it shortly, but you know that I've mentioned several times before, exactly what you two both mentioned about just the adults playing school children, which I've never understood. But yeah, it's this. I don't know if it's the way the character's written or the way it's played, but it's like another 10 years younger than that. You're absolutely right, Craig. And like the scene when he's on the swing outside of the house, it's like exactly the sort of thing a wee 7-year-old girl might do. It's so strange, and I would love to know more about, and maybe the story's out there, but I hadn't had time to research this in particular. But I would love to know if that was an acting choice or a directing choice, or whether it's in the script or perhaps even it's in the original story. But I'm guessing not. It doesn't seem very Steinbeck-like.
Well, this is what annoys me, is that this is why I closed on the phrasing I did, is that this has to be a directorial choice, because Dean at this point in his first movie would have had no say creatively whatsoever over his performance. He might have had input, some of it might have been his idea, but Kazan would have had to have signed off on it, and it's absolutely his choice to have that performance from that actor. And the annoying thing is that there is actually other stuff to enjoy here, right? I'm being a little bit flippant with some of it, but the point for me is that there is probably a pretty decent film here if you replace him with someone else. It's that or even if you get a different performance from Dean, that performance just absolutely destroyed the rest of the film for me. I could not invest in it because it is the strangest, most puerile bullshit I've ever seen in my life. And it is upsetting, because it was probably a perfectly serviceable film other from that, and I might quite have enjoyed it were it not just for that performance. And it's not Ofty. It isn't Ofty. It's East of Eden. It's not often I'll say that about a single performance in a film. I can usually see past it, but not on this occasion, man. Sorry, I didn't mean to steamroll into your opinion there, Drew. It's just made me really upset.
I can't necessarily disagree with most of the points you're making, and I feel similarly to a lot of them. I just happened to enjoy this, and I thought there were bits of real promise in Dean's performance, so I'm thinking maybe it is a directorial thing.
I'm always glad to listen. I am genuinely glad that you got more out of it than I did. I feel sad for myself. I don't
necessarily want to watch bad films, so I prefer not to. No, I think you're right. It must be directorial, because even though, I mean, Dean had been in a few TV series. He'd only had walk-on credits in the other films he'd been in. So really, what is, if you look at IMDb, he's not actually credited, or walk-on parts rather. It's the tail end of the studio system, so people are still signed to contracts. The studios have all the power. So there's not, even if Dean was known in the United States at the time, he'd done various adverts and stuff, doing some modelling, that sort of thing. So he was in the. It wasn't just like he was suddenly dead. Oh, there's James Dean. He was known before that.
He was part of the public conscience before that. So right,
he'd be clearly picked out as an upcoming star. He looked right for the time, I guess. But it's going to be Kazan. It's going to have had all the power there. It's his first feature film, on a contract to Warner Brothers. So you've got to think it's his choice, and it's such a strange choice, though. Why would you do that?
And Kazan was. I know Scorsese's cited him specifically as an influence, hasn't he? In fact, does Scorsese not have some hand in, was it Kazan that he had some hand in a documentary about, or am I thinking of someone else? But he was very much like the Scorsese of his time, almost. Like it wasn't that Kazan was just an up-and-coming filmmaker at this point. He was already established by this point, wasn't he? So he was definitely the one holding the cards. Dearie me.
If it is his choice, or regardless of whose choice it is, actually, it doesn't stop it being equally odd, because, and I get there's probably some idea that he's somewhat stunted in terms of emotional growth, and that there are problems with his upbringing, and that they're suggesting there's just a problem with him, inherently evil. He's got that from his mother, who was an evil person. But to play it so young, when he's got to be a love interest for the woman later, and to be able to go into business, and to be able to be the person that takes care of his dad later on, it doesn't work. It's so strange. And I'm thinking, the more I'm thinking about this now, the less I'm liking as well. While I watched it, I enjoyed it, so that's fine.
If you had explained it as this character has, and I don't say this to be demeaning or flippant, if you had explained that this character had developmental issues or something, I would have expected, that would have been an explanation for this. But as someone who's supposed to be a teenager, I'm like, no, at no point in history has a teenager acted like this, unless they are the strangest little on the planet.
Yeah, and you mentioned too the bit when he's in the ice house and he's looking at them, and it's like, he's one step away from being Billy Bob Thornton's Sling Blade there. So the developmental abnormality, it's almost played like that, but there's no suggestion otherwise that it's meant to be.
Can I freeze French fried taters here? Oh dear. But there you go.
Another thing I couldn't get over with all these films, actually, is the underscoring. It's maybe worse than East of Eden, although it isn't all of them, but particularly when Dean's getting dragged out of the whorehouse at the start, and while he's rolling around, he's doing a perfectly good job of acting upset there. I don't need the orchestra falling down a pit to underscore the point as well.
I hate underscoring. Yeah, I mean, even in our last episode, I was moaning about the underscoring. Yeah. It drives me crazy as a foreign correspondent.
Curiously, I didn't really notice it all that much in Forrest Correspondent, but I did notice it very much in all of these films. And it didn't help, put it that way.
Yeah, it's a thing I do not care for at all, Scott. So,
but Drew,
you're not alone.
There aren't a lot of us who know when to feel sad unless we hear a trumpet. Shall we move on?